Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, and transmitting from the central regions of the land of enchantment, which is also known as New Mexico, on or around Albuquerque area, northern area to be exact. And it's early morning. Today's date is August 21st, 2014. Yep, it's what I'm going to be doing. This pretty similar stuff, mainly Rick Perry stuff that's going on in Ferguson, and a few other interesting topics here, and plus some other stuff that you don't want to. Another story you don't want people, the mainstream news, don't even want to touch. So, first thing I'm going to be doing came out from the Palm Beach Post. Posted actually August 20th. That's yesterday, so I would say, 10:16 p.m. Eastern Time. So we could say it's pretty fresh. And it's entitled, Rick Perry, Prosecutor Called Ethical Fair. It was written by Andrea Ball, American Statement staff. And I read here, by all accounts, Michael McCrum is a man of contradictions. He's been a prosecutor and defense attorney. He backed both Republicans and Democrats for office. He's a criminal defense attorney who had to defend himself earlier this year. Supporters say he's a man who doesn't seek the spotlight but always seems to find it. Now the special prosecutor behind Governor Rick Perry's indictment is at the center of one of the biggest criminal cases in Texas political history. Last week, McCrum announced that a Travis County grand jury had handed up a 2-count felony indictment of the longest-serving Texas governor, accusing Perry of abuse of official capacity and corrosion of a public servant. Perry denies he did anything wrong and has gone on the offense. He's launched a campaign to discredit the allegations, calling the prosecution baseless, partisan, a farce, and a political witch hunt launched to achieve at the courthouse what could not be achieved at the ballot box. Those who know McCrum say nothing could be further from the truth. As much as I love the governor, McCrum is no one's puppet, said Barbara Barrera, a San Antonio defense attorney. Devil in the details. McCrum, 57, grew up in San Antonio and graduated from then Southwest Texas State University in 1978 with a degree in criminal science. He was a president of Pi Kappa Tau fraternity and was a cheerleader. McCrum first worked as a police officer in Arlington and Dallas, then earned a law degree at St. Mary's University in San Antonio in 1985. In 1989, after working in a private law firm, McCrum began an 11-year career as a federal prosecutor in San Antonio. During that time, he handled a wide range of cases, including drugs, violence, and economic crimes. Solomon L. Weisenberg, now a Washington, D.C. attorney, worked as a prosecutor with McCrum. At that time, he describes McCrum as ethical, thorough, and charismatic in a courtroom, but not in a loud or puffy way. He had a job to do, and he took it very seriously, Weisenberg said. He looked at the law and looked at the facts. He looked at the facts, and tried to do the right thing. McCrum, who speaks Spanish, went into private practice in 2000. Barrera has seen McCrum in action as a prosecutor and defense lawyer and calls him a cool operator in the courtroom with an intense intention to minutia. He's a devil in details because he will take a case apart down to its base level and then rebuild it, Barrera said. He said he has never heard any of McCrum's colleagues cast aspersions on his integrity, but in January, prosecutors with a Baxter County District Attorney's Office accused McCrum of contempt of court. saying he told an important witness in an intoxication manslaughter trial to avoid testifying. McCrum denied the allegations. The Fourth Court of Appeals later said the state had missed the deadline to file its claim against McCrum. Prosecutors said they will appeal it. Political preference. If McCrum has aligned himself with a political party, is not obvious. He worked as an assistant U.S. attorney during the George H.W. Bush administration. In 2007, he gave contributions to two political candidates, $300 to Stephen C. Habig, a Republican vying for the Fourth Court of Appeals in San Antonio, and $500 to U.S. Representative Charlie Gonzalez, a San Antonio Democrat. The next year, he contributed $500 to a former prosecutor with whom he had previously worked, Republican Brett Richardson, who was running for re-election as a state district judge. Richardson has served as senior district judge since. Voting records for McCrum indicated that he doesn't vote in primaries. McCrum declined to speak to the American Statesman for the story. In 2009, McCrum was nominated to be a U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas under the Obama administration. Politicians from both parties, including Republican U.S. Senator John Cornyn and Austin's Democrat U.S. Representative Lloyd Doggett, supported his nomination. The next year, he took himself out of the running, saying the process was taking too long and needed to be tend to his legal practice. Special prosecutor. In June 2013, Perry vetoed a $7.5 million appropriation to District Attorney Rosemary Lemberg's office, making good on a threat following her drunk driving arrest. Shortly after, a left-leaning watchdog group filed the ethics complaint against Perry. Travis County prosecutors stepped aside for conflict of interest reasons. The county's attorney office also declined involvement. The complaint eventually ended up with Judge Richardson, who tapped McCrum as a special prosecutor. This week, as Republicans assailed the prosecution as political, one grand juror told the American Statesman that McCrum was a straight shooter who encouraged the group to fairly assess the facts. We all tried to be very straight and honest and do the very best we could get to the truth, Grand Juror John Bezin said. McCrum, who has a wife and 5 children, is a member of the Riverside Community Church in Belvedere, said Scott Here, the lead pastor. The special prosecutor is active in Bible study and coaches middle school football at Brocken Christian School. Here, said Scott Here, to be exact. He is not like a big powder puff either. Here said, when it's on, it's on. He's going to fight. He's not going to leave anything on the table. Oh yeah, it's a very interesting story about this man. And so it's how I see it. Everything has to be done in good faith, including anyone that's going to testify against Governor Rick Perry. Sometimes it is sketchy too. I have to say that respectfully, but based on the allegations and hearsay. So hopefully, if that's true, if that's the case, both sides have to be organized, and the jury has that power to say guilty or not. And I'll be honest, I am not a Rick Perry fan. And when I heard about what the attorney for Travis County, Miss Lehman, I was not impressed by her actions. And in good faith, she should have resigned as district attorney. In addition, I believe, I'm correct, I'm about to look at Texas statutes. Local servants can be recalled. If she's been corrupt and didn't have integrity, She should resign. If not, the voters can recall her. Plain and simple. Or wait for the next election. Toss that woman out. Because I am not pleased with her as well. And we all know, too, under Bybert, which is, the Associated Press, there's a mugshot of Rick Perry. He did turn himself in. And what's interesting about the charges, when people claim to be political, and it's funny about that, because when you look under the Texas Constitution, Article 4, Executive Department, and we'll go down to Section 14 and 15. And what's funny, interesting about this, because he does have the power to approve or disapprove a bill. Like it says here in Section 14, entitled Approval or Disapproval of Bills, Return and Reconsideration, Failure to Return, Disapproval of Items or Appropriation. And it says here, every bill which shall have passed both House of the Legislature shall be presented to the governor for his approval. If he approve, he shall sign it. But if he disapprove it, he shall return it with his objections to the House in which it originated, which House shall enter the objections at large upon its journal, and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of the members present agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent with the objections to the other house, which likewise it shall be reconsidered and approved by 2/3 of the members of the House. It shall become a law. So even if this, I didn't finish the whole thing. When you talk about the $7.5 million to the Integrity Group, which is mostly lawyers, and of course Rosemary Lyman is involved with that committee. They can shoot it back and forth. Okay, so if you wants to veto it, the House and Senate can do a 2/3 majority to make it a law. But in such cases, I'll continue here, but in such cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the members voting for or against it shall be entered on the journal on each house respectfully. If any of the bill shall not be returned by the governor with his objections within 10 days after it shall have been presented to him, then the same shall be a law in like manner as he had to sign it, unless the legislator by his adjournment payment in return, in which case it shall be a law unless he shall file the same with his objections in the office of the Secretary of State, and give notice thereof by public proclamation within 20 days after such adjournment. If any bill presented to the governor contains several items of appropriation, he may object to one or more such items and approve the other portion of the bill. In such case, he shall append to the bill, at the time of signing it, a statement of the items to which he objects, and no item so objected to shall take effect. If the legislator be in session, he shall transmit to the House in which the bill originated a copy of such statements, and the items objected to shall be separately considered. So technically, if I'm correct, he can do the online vetoes online. So he can just do some deletions, and he can have that power to sign it or not. If on reconsideration, one or more of such items be approved by 2/3 of the members present of each house, the same shall be part of the law, notwithstanding the objections of the governor. If any such bill containing several items of appropriation, not having been presented to the governor in 10 days, Sundays accepted, prior to adjournment, be in the hands of the governor at the time of the adjournment, he shall have 20 days from such adjournment within to which filed objections to any items thereof to make proclamation of the same, and such item or items shall not take effect. So the whole thing that on Section 14 of Article 4, they can go back and forth. He vetoes online. The House and the legislators can do a 2/3 majority, and if it leaves it on his desk 10 days, except for Sundays, and it can be a law. But technically, he did have the power to veto. So, and we go to Section 15. It's titled Approval or Disapproval of Orders, Resolutions, or Votes. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of both House and legislator may be necessary except on questions of adjournment shall be presented to the governor, and before it shall take effect shall be approved by him, or being disapproved shall be repassed by both houses, and all the rules, provisions, and limitations shall apply thereto as prescribed in the last proceeding in the section in the case of a bill. So there you have it on that perspective on his duties, constitutional duties. I will put these footnotes in there too for each of the articles I'm addressing here. And if you could look at one of the two charges, when he was accused of abuse of official capacity, which is Texas Penal Code or Statute Section 3902. Yeah, Texas Penal Code Annual Section 39.02. And it says here about abuse of official capacity, and how I'm seeing this is considered a felony offense. So I'm just going to go on there because misdemeanors, Class C and B and A misdemeanors and so forth. So I'm just going to tell you what it means here. You have the definition for that. It goes, A public servant commits an offense if with attempt to obtain a benefit or with intent to harm or defraud another he intentionally or knowingly, subsection 1, violates a law relating to a public servant's office or employment, or 2, misuses government property, services, personnel, or any other thing of value belonging to the government that has come to the public servant's custody or possession by virtue of the public servant's office or employment. So there's a claim. So he's trying to, quote, manipulate. So pretty interesting there. And he says a felony offense. So when you go down don't say what degree, hit the degrees anyway, just to make it. It says here on 4, subsection, the 4, a state jail felony, and if the value is misuse. So what they're going to be really focusing on here, it's mostly the threat or taunting or etc. And another one here on coercion of a public servant or voter, which is Texas Penal Code Annual Section 36.03, which is, coercion of public servant or voter. And it says here, I'll just read to its entirety. A person commits an offense if by means of coercion he 1 influence or attempts to influence a public servant in a specific exercise of his official power or a specific performance of his official duty, or influence or attempts to influence a public servant to violate the public servant's known legal duty, or 2, influences or subsection 2, influences or attempts to influence a voter not to vote or to vote in a particular manner. Okay. Well, interesting there. Well, it says here about subsection B. An offense under this section is a Class A misdemeanor unless the coercion is a threat to commit a felony, in which the event is a felony to the 3rd degree. So, allegedly, he violated a third-degree felony. And let's go down here to C. Subsection C is an exception to the application of subsection A1 of this section that the person who influences or attempts to influence a public servant is a member of the governing body of a governmental entity, and that action that influence or attempts to influence the public servant is an official action by taking to the member of the governing body for the purposes of this section. The term official action includes deliberations by the governing body of a government entity. So he's being accused of that. And what's really interesting, because talk about the abuse of official capacity, it's interesting to talk about the state felony, $1,500 to $20,000, and it's mostly money. That's one thing that really interesting about that. So yeah, that's usually it on that aspect. So I'm going to hit those footnotes. This is from under findlaw.com. They're pretty good on what they do, on their accuracy. If you gotta go further, hit the Texas statutes as well with the same codes I aforementioned. So like I said, I'm not a big Rick Perry fan. I do find things a little fishy. However, the case, the evidence against him better be very damn accurate. I just don't want to see anyone get scapegoated. And I have to say this, I blasted Rick Perry when he was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at his luncheon fundraiser at the Riverside Hotel in the Solar Statistic of Fort Lauderdale, to be exact. I did bullhorn them on information I got, and I sent it to their supporters. Some of them didn't like it, but the people outside really enjoyed it. And I did not do it out of malice or hatred towards the man, but in love and in good faith, because I do have to criticize them honorably. Alright, that's enough said of my rant. Next one here came from 21st Wire. Yeah, 21st Wire, which is 21stwire.com. Came out late yesterday, and it's entitled Attorney General Holder Visits Ferguson to Dispense Crowd Control Advice Prop Up National Guard Forces. As it says here, in the spirit of you never want a serious crisis to go to waste policy, President Obama has dispatched his top lawman, U.S. Attorney Eric Holder, to Ferguson, Missouri in the aftermath of the shooting death of an unarmed teenager, Michael Brown, and on the heels of National Guard deployment, problem, action, reaction, solution. This is getting way too predictable. Intel published a report yesterday with an official statement from Fast and Furious Holder discussing his directives for the visit. As I informed the President in this afternoon, the full resources of the Department of Justice are being committed to our federal civil rights investigation into the death of Michael Brown. During the day today, more than 40 FBI agents continued their canvassing of the neighborhood where Michael Brown was shot. As a result of this investigative work, several new interviews have already been conducted. Moreover, at my direction, an additional medical examination is being performed on the body of Michael Brown. The autopsy is being performed today by one of the most experienced medical examiners in the United States military. Oh, okay, interesting there. I am confident this additional autopsy will be thorough and aid in our investigation. In addition to updating the President of these developments, I informed him of my plan to personally travel to Ferguson Wednesday. I intend to meet with FBI investigators and prosecutors on the ground from the Civil Rights Division and U.S. Attorney's Office officials about the ongoing investigation. I realize there is a tremendous interest in the facts of this incident that led to Michael Brown's death, but I ask for the public's patience as we conduct this investigation. The selective release of sensitive information that we have seen in this case is so far troubling to me. No matter how others pursue their own separate inquiries, the Justice Department is resolved to preserve the integrity of its investigation. this is a critical step in restoring the trust between law enforcement and the community, not just Ferguson but beyond. In order to truly begin the process of healing, we must also see an end to the acts of violence in the streets of Ferguson. Those who have been peacefully demonstrating should join with law enforcement in condemning the actions of looters and others seeking to inflame tensions. To assist on this front, the department will be dispatching additional representatives from the Community Relations Service, including Director Grand Lum to Ferguson. These officials will continue to convene stakeholders whose cooperation is critical to keeping the peace. Furthermore, as the President has announced, Ron Davis, our Director of Cops Office, will arrive on the ground in Ferguson Tuesday. Ron has been in touch with local and state officials since last week, providing technical assistance on crowd control techniques and facilitating communications between Missouri officials and other law enforcement whose communities have faced similar challenges in the past. Oh goody, feds know best. Remember, Homeland Security Act 2002. That's part of the little playbook. And I will proceed. When we hear rhetoric like this from Washington, D.C., we can't help but wonder if some of these control techniques will include muzzling and outright threatening media and citizen journalists, as captured in the video below. There has been numerous reports of intimidation on the ground targeting protesters, members of the media, and the proud citizens of Ferguson, and this will likely continue as the new regime takes over in the St. Louis County town. And you know what? Let's hear that video. I'll try to crank this out if I can. Alright, so bear with me here. One officer made a claim. He went, "Go F yourself," threatens to kill Ferguson's live stream.
What's your name, sir? Your name's Go Fuck Yourself? Alright, go fuck yourself. Thank you, sir. Hello, officer. Go fuck yourself. Officer, go fuck yourself. He's trying to kill me. I hope you guys are watching this. He had to be told by another officer. People right now for no reason. He's ready to kill my friend. On my stream, they tell you to have this guy, right? Yeah. On my stream, he just said he's gonna fucking threaten me. He's gonna kill me.
Yeah, if you watch the, when you have, I will put this article in there too with the video. Well, it's interesting because I know that you have a lot of peaceful people out there, and you got a bunch of riffraff troublemakers trying to throw bottles and stuff and debris into the crowd. And during that time, the peacekeepers trying to say stop throwing stuff. Then during that time, it was a bald, heavy-set looking police officer had a gun. He pointed at some of the cameras and just made those threatening comments. That's when the reporter asked him, "What's your name?" That's when he said, "Go F yourself." So they all started saying, "Okay, officer, go F yourself." They just calling him out because it's like I said, it's very disturbing on that scenario. And I am pretty convinced too that there's reports that a lot of out-of-towners from East St. Louis, Chicago, even people claim from Texas were going up there, just going in, just starting trouble, burning the community down. I have a question: Are these thugs and riffraff were hired? It's a big claim, but anything's possible. So I will proceed over here update: the cop seen pointing the rifle in the camera video has been suspended indefinitely. And yeah, it's from the Huffington Post reports. And I'm gonna add that because the Palm Beach Post too happened. It was marked in there as well. So I will put a footnote on this for that particular article. And it says here, Holder visit will also mark yet another incident where federal officials will take up arms against citizens and implement another police state response to a very fortunate and broken situation. And you can bet Governor Jay Nixon will be rewarded despite his earlier feigned criticisms of the Obama administration for not doing enough after the streets of Ferguson went ballistic, for his cooperation in allowing the federal government to fashion the show me state into a police state. That's right, because I have a question with this to Governor Dixon. Can the damn community, excuse me, can you explain why St. Louis County and Ferguson couldn't control it, including you as governor never took the initiative of bringing in the National Guard a lot quicker than before? You're gonna call in the feds to take care of your problem? Let me tell you this, buddy. I recommend you read Phyllis Paper 46, written by James Madison, where she made a statement, which I'm paraphrasing, that the federal government should never encroach on the states' rights. And you, sir, based on that rhetoric or quote you made, you are very anti-10th Amendment. Alright. As I proceed, the Washington Post provides background below for what is in store for the town of Ferguson as the feds officially dig in. Meanwhile, Al Sharpton prepares his next move. And we just go right here. And it says, Holder headed to Ferguson on Wednesday will oversee response shooting. Yep, so I'll just keep on reading here. Attorney General Holder will travel to his battle-scarred St. Louis suburb to oversee the investigation of the shooting death of an unarmed black teenager at the hands of a white police officer. The White House said Monday. Holder announced as National Guard troops arrived to back up local and state police on Monday night in Ferguson. An early evening claim gave way to new confrontations as some demonstrators threw bottles at heavily armed police and officers threw stun grenades and tear gas towards them. Next day was expected to be a crucial test for everybody in charge here, from local police commanders to Governor Jay Nixon, who is a Democrat, who had called out the National Guard after chaotic protest Sunday, to Obama himself. Obama's decision to dispatch his Attorney General was an admission that the teenagers' killing had become a symbol of something enormous, a test of the American justice system and the government's ability to the police officers who police everyone else. And you can read this more from the Washington Post. I'm gonna just check this out here. Yeah. Oops. Hold on. Oh, thank you. And there's a video for that. So that's the link in the link below. Not a whole lot. It's just very similar. They have the photos. That link will be on the 21st Century Wire. So that's understandable, or it's good. So can this be a training tool for future cities and communities on a national level? Centralization, yes. And in addition, from both sides of the partisan basis, they are convinced that the police are way over militarized, including one gentleman from Armed American Radio, Mark Walters, had a couple of guys did an interview and they talked about the Ferguson case, and they all agreed they were over militarized. So it's a lot of stuff is questioned, and this is just an example because a lot of with the press, because they're being attacked worldwide when it comes to rallies and protests and governments and so forth. And this is just another good example. So I recommend everyone too, if you're going to go out, especially this weekend, you're going to be doing a lot of Michael Brown, sympathizing Justice for Michael Brown rallies. If you go out there, pay attention to the infiltrators and plants that's going to stir up trouble. You're gonna have if you have video cameras, bring them, keep them handy, because you may have to use it. Because truth of the matter is, you're always gonna have narcs, troublemakers, and people want to instigate. Have your right to peaceably to assemble. Speak your mind, and observe everything on all sides. All right, my friends. So next one here. This is from shtfplan.com by Max Slavo. Came out yesterday. It's entitled "Report Special Ops Contractors to Missouri. Never guessed we would employ a high-threat team in our own city." This is from photo credits here. It reads, "The events in Ferguson, Missouri are a harbinger of things to come. In addition to the deployment of National Guard troops and the heavy militarization of local and federal law enforcement agents in the area, it looks like a special operations contractor with experience in the Middle East war zones have been asked to help. Their mission is not clear, and no one in any official government capacity is saying anything. But according to a tweet from Asymmetric Solutions on Tuesday, private contractors have been requested in the Ferguson-St. Louis area. The company is a division of the Applied Defense Technologies, which employs ex-Special Operations members like Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Delta Force operatives, often high-risk theaters of war, places like Iraq and Iran. And there's some of the tweets here. We've been to Baghdad, Kabul, KL, Manila, Peshawar, Bogota. Never guessed we would deploy a high-threat team in our city, Ferguson. That came out August 19th, that was tweeted to Symmetric Solutions. The company followed up their initial tweet to clarify the involvement after numerous users and alternative media outlet like 1776 Channel voiced concern over the use of private special operation contractors in a military role on U.S. soil. And as the tweets read, to clarify, we are protecting the state law enforcement for those exercising their right to assemble. Escort detailed argument for individual. And as it reads here, we are saddened that such service is needed in what is normally a peaceful, harmonious metropolitan area full of good people. And that came out, that was done there. According to a follow-up tweet that came about 12 hours later, the contractors had finished their job by 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday and expressed their thoughts on the media news coverage of the events taking place in Ferguson. It says here, safe tour, job complete. On direct observation, seems media has made protesters out to be more bloodthirsty than they are. Interesting. And it says, furthermore here, it says here, though the company has not released any specific details about their role in Ferguson or who hired them, it looks like they were either facilitating the transport of supplies or providing security for a high-profile client. Where the client was a private individual or a government entity remains a mystery. Private security contracting firms operate throughout the United States on a daily basis. However, it's no surprise that a top-tier contracting like Asymmetric Solutions being deployed in a riot-laden area like Ferguson, Missouri, will raise eyebrows. This particular deployment may have been innocent enough, but it does raise the question how far our government is prepared to go in the event of a widespread civil unrest scenario. They have spent years planning for such events as economic collapse, food riots, and other emergency scenarios. And because contracting firms such as Asymmetric Solutions have been deployed on countless tours to high-risk areas over the last decade, it stands to reason that these ex-military professionals will be utilized by the higher bidder in the event of a national emergency. The real question then becomes how far the individuals and closely knit teams willing to go if called for such duties on U.S. soil. In the case of Asymmetric Solutions, it looks as the firm was genuinely concerned that they may be utilized as a sledgehammer by government officials. is a very good point. One thing I have to say for sure, personally, I don't like it. It's like hiring mercenaries, and it's a private contractor firm. Can we say potentially or possible fascism? Absolutely. Another form of tyranny, my friends. And one thing about tyranny is very condemning in my eyes. That's why my religious creed is demoniac resistance. And one thing you have to know for sure is always people just prepare yourselves. I don't like this at all. And I know the people in Ferguson don't want this. They want to keep the peace. They want to do things honorably. Everyone needs to think more logical. Because if you go on a high tirade, you're going to get taken advantage of. Divide and rule. That's the name. So, I always have to say about this is just a lot of getting a little bit crazy, I would say. That'll be a good thing. Alright, well, next one here just came from Sun Sentinel. No, that's not Orlando Sentinel, excuse me. And this came out a while back. I just gotta, oops, here. It's entitled DOJ Civil Rights Probe in Zimmerman-Trayvon case continues. Whether you're for or against it, it's pretty strange. But just hold on, it's got a little glitch here. Little glitch delay. Sorry about that, my friends. Hold on here. Ah, shoot. I think I goofed. Yeah, I goofed. Sorry about that. Do a little reset. Come on. There it is. Nice. No, thank you. This is I just don't miss a thing. I don't want to subscribe. Thank you. What the heck? I'll be right back. Just hang tight. Alright, I'm back. Sorry for that little delay there. Yeah, this one is it's entitled DOJ Civil Rights.
Your phone is smart. Your kids are smart. Your dog, well, let's just...
Shoot. Hate when you do that. Okay, sorry about that. That's I'll get that in a moment. Alright. Come on. What the heck? Thank you. Alright. Says here, DOJ Civil Rights Probe in Zimmerman-Trayvon case continues. Civil rights investigators expect in Central Florida this week. Came out yesterday and is written by Renee Stutzman. And it says here, in Washington, 2.5 years ago, the nation's top civil rights enforcer, Tom Perez, at the U.S. Department of Justice, sat down with Sanford Mayor, City Manager, and U.S. Representative Crony Brown and promised to investigate whether Trayvon Martin was a victim of something more than heinous than a homicide. Was he also a victim of a killer intent on harming him because he was black? That was March 20th, 2012. The Department of Justice still has no answer to that question. Civil rights investigators are due back in Central Florida this week to continue their work on the case. The agency has repeatedly refused to discuss what it has unearthed, whom it's talking to, and when the investigation will conclude. But two people with ties to the case report they recently have been in touch with the Department of FBI, the legmen sometimes used by the DOJ. One is Frank Tafe, a former friend of George Zimmerman's. The neighborhood watch volunteer killed Trayvon, an unarmed black 17-year-old son, in Sanford on February 26, 2012. Tafe was interviewed last month by 2 DOJ civil rights attorneys and an FBI agent in Maitland. He said, and they've asked for another interview this week. He has not agreed to talk this time, he said. The other is Shiping Bale, the former assistant Volusia County medical examiner who performed the autopsy on Trayvon, a high school junior from Miami Gardens. In an interview last week, Bale told the Orlando Sentinel that in March, the Justice Department sent an FBI agent from Springfield, Illinois, near where he works now, to interview him. We talked about 2 hours, Bale said. He said he also expected to meet with federal officials again soon and possibly this week to provide more information. Bale said the agent's question centered on whether Zimmerman was violated Trayvon's civil rights. On that point, he told the agent he was not sure, but added that he believed the teenager's rights were violated by the medical examiner's office, the Sanford Police Department, and Special Prosecutor Angela Corey. Bale recently published a 37-page book about the case and his subsequent firing. In it, he accused those three agencies of failing to collect key pieces of evidence, of sloppily handling some pieces of evidence, Trayvon's clothes, and poor trial preparation. Ex-official sees no violation. Zimmerman, 30, of Sanford, was acquitted of second-degree murder by a Seminole County jury July 13, 2013. He had called police February 26, 2012, after seeing Trayvon walking through his neighborhood, described him as suspicious, then got out of his truck and followed him on foot. He shot Trayvon, he told police, after the teenager knocked him to the ground with a punch to the nose, then climbed on top and began hammering his head into the sidewalk. Sanford police did not arrest him, saying they did not have enough evidence to justify criminal charges, something that set off weeks of civil rights marches in Sanford across the country and beyond. Now I gotta hit the next page here, so page 2. Hopefully they'll work with me. Yeah, just hang tight, my friends. Alright. Otherwise I'll make it to pop up again. Shoot, let's go. Okay, well, let's proceed here. Come on. His acquittal also set off protests, including violent ones in California, within days.
Your phone is smart.
I expected it, my friends.
Your dog? Well, let's just say he's sweet. And now you're grocery shopping.
Thank you. Shoot. Oh, man, come on. Work with me here, please. There you go. His acquittal also set off protests, including violent ones in California, within days of the verdict. Zimmerman's gun and other pieces of evidence, including Trayvon's clothes and a bag of Skittles found in his pocket, were turned over to the FBI for a civil rights investigation. What agents have done with those items and whom they've interviewed have not been disclosed. Either the department or the FBI will discuss the case. To have a good faith basis to prosecute, they've got to have reasonable likelihood of conviction, said former U.S. Attorney Rick Janka, now in private practice in Orlando. Based on the evidence that came out in Zimmerman's murder trial, Janka said he saw absolutely none that suggested Zimmerman was guilty of a civil rights action. Some thought probe was closed. The list of people who say they have not been interviewed by federal investigators is surprising. His strange wife, Shelley Zimmerman, plus Zimmerman's mother, father, sister, and brother. It is something we very much think about all the time, said Robert Zimmerman Jr., the former defendant's brother, We just figured, hey, they're the world's best investigators. They must be taking their time. It's just very strange that no one from the FBI or DOJ has spoken to our family. Some people contacted by the Sentinel, including a former Sanford Police Department manager involved in the homicide investigation, said the civil rights investigation was begun so long ago they assumed it had been closed. And further here, Perez, head of the Justice Department of the Civil Rights Division, who was directly involved in the decision to launch the probe, has become Secretary of Labor, U.S. Secretary of Labor. FBI agents went to work on the case shortly after that March 20th, 2012 meeting among Perez, Sanford Mayor Jeff Triplett, City Manager Norton Bonaparte Jr., and Brown, according to prosecution records released by Corey. At least 6 agents began questioning Zimmerman's friends, associates, and even a former girlfriend who convinced a judge to issue a domestic violence injunction against him. In 36 interviews, the friends, neighbors, co-workers, and Sanford cops, no one characterized Zimmerman as a racist. Oh yeah, it's just very disturbing case, regardless what side you're on. I always find it very morose, and if there's a claim that it was done sloppy, to be honest, if that's the case, yeah, then that's what happens when they weren't organized. Because when you go to trial, you want to make sure you have everything down packed without any gaps. That's part of the court justice system. So when now you want to have the prosecutors or the federal government, they're violating the civil rights. One thing I'm very concerned of is called double jeopardy, which is the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And that's like, I really just find this a very morose case, regardless of what side you're on. Based on the information that was presented, the prosecution never really had their priorities straight. And to be very frank, based on the pressure, they got fast-tracked. And that's the big mistake. It should have went to a grand jury, even though the Sanford police believed, based on their investigation, there was no just cause of prosecuting Mr. Zimmerman. Instead of going through this, you have a special prosecutor, they should have took it to a grand jury. And I remember that time I was chatting with some folks on Spokane Conservative Examiner. We agreed on it. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on, but we had a good discussion, and I had to back them up on that. The grand jury should have been presented before actually prosecuting Mr. Zimmerman. So that was the mistake on that part. However, on the other end, like I said, you get innocent to proven guilty. That's the other way around. Alright, well, here's something that's really interesting. I got this from Before It's News. It's entitled, Cops Gun Down Unarmed White Boy in Salt Lake City. Mainstream Media Goes Silent. This is from the KUTV video. Okay, KUTV News. And it was actually done by this part of the report came from Josie Wales, and I thank him for that. And it reads here, this is very similar to what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. Dillon Taylor, 20, from Salt Lake City, was leaving a 7-Eleven store around 7 p.m. when police received a call about a man with a gun. Upon responding to 7-Eleven, they saw Dillon leaving the store and ordered him to lay down on the ground. Dillon had his earphones in and did not hear what the cops said. When Dillon grabbed his pants to pull them up, the cops opened fire. Dillon was pronounced dead at the scene. It came in as a 911 call that there was a man with a gun, said South Salt Lake Police Sergeant Darren Sweden. He was verbally challenged and ultimately was shot. Sweden would not release any more details of the incident. It has been rumored that the cops were not white cops. If true, you have exactly the same situation as in Ferguson, Missouri, is that the cops were not white and the victim was white. Where is the outrage over this incident? A day after, Salt Lake police shot and killed a man whose family claimed he was unarmed. Questions about the shooting remains unanswered. They're here to protect and serve. More like shoot and kill, said Jarrell Taylor, Dillon Taylor's older brother. Anybody in this house or anybody on the streets, if we kill someone, we're doing 25 years to life in prison. I like cops to lose his job. This cop loses his job and do the same amount of time like a regular human being. Dillon's brother and cousin claimed they were on their way to visit his parents' graves, and that Dillon was surprised by the police presence. He was not aggressive, he said. He had headphones in. He couldn't hear anything. And then they finally surrounded him. Jarrell said, "They're like, get on the ground," after he pulled up his pants and they shot him. Thane believes people might have thought his cousin was reaching for a gun when in reality he grabbed his cell phone. I was in shock because he was wearing a white t-shirt and there was blood all over it, Thane said. They ran up, handcuffed him, he wasn't moving. A witness video shows police yelling for the two men to remain on the ground as Thane repeatedly screams that they have shot his cousin. The two men were taken to the police station but released hours later without being charged or cited. Family said Dillon had struggles throughout his teenage and adult life, including a criminal past after losing his parents at the age of 12. They hope to remain him as a loyal friend and devoted father to be. His girlfriend is just a couple of months pregnant, Jarrell said. He was the funniest kid ever, Jarrell said. His own baby will never meet him. The family has set up an account to help pay for funeral expenses. Wells Fargo's bank accepting donations for Justice for Dillon. Account number 63868663885. Family and friends are planning at vigil at 7 p.m. at the 7-Eleven where he died. Where is the outrage from mainstream media on this shooting? It seems they pick and choose which shootings they televise. Why is that? How many more innocent kids need to be gunned down by the police before communities hold these public servants accountable? And just to verify that story, not just from the KUTV, but there was one from Deseret News, said the same thing, and it was very disturbing on it, you know. And it's happening on August 11th to be exact. So, but you know, I'll just play the video, you know, from the KUTV and you can take it from there. It's not that long, so here you go.
A vigil tonight for a man shot by police. 20-year-old Dillon Taylor was shot last night after a confrontation.
Chris Jones on this story for us tonight joins us now live. Chris, sounds like dozens showed up to remember Taylor tonight.
Yeah, about 60 people did show up here at this 7-Eleven, where, as you can see, there is another incident currently playing out right here in this parking lot. We'll tell you about that in a second, but the folks who showed up tonight, they say they are angry and they want justice. Under tumultuous skies, it all feels like a dream right now. A gathering of thunderstruck friends.
He's like my brother.
Remember Dillon Taylor, shot by police in this parking lot. This is video taken by a passerby. Dillon has been shot. His cousin and brother apprehended. Police received calls that a man was brandishing a weapon nearby. When police arrived, these two stayed put. Dillon police say
runs. He was verbally challenged and ultimately was shot.
Is there a weapon? Did the man have a gun?
There's a lot of interviewing that needs to be done and a crime scene that needs to be processed.
So you could quickly look on his body, right?
That's not something I can speculate at this time.
Police won't say if Dillon had a weapon, but his brother and cousins say he emphatically did not. They say the only thing Dillon did was reach for his belt.
Had his headphones in, he couldn't hear nothing. And when they finally surrounded him, is when they were like, get on the ground, would pull up his pants. And I shot him.
Tonight at this vigil, light, tears, and comfort, and a cry, they say, for justice for the man who shot Dillon.
I want to see him get treated like all the other killers out there. I want to see him go to prison. I want to see him get punished for his actions.
So there were 3 officers who were involved in the shooting. They are from Salt Lake City. Now, this shooting actually occurred in South Salt Lake City, so South Salt Lake will take over the investigation. The incident that occurred just moments ago, you can see there are a couple of women who are in custody right now. Just moments ago, take a look at the video. Police arrived on this scene, guns drawn, K-9 units engaged. They pulled over a pickup truck here. There were 4 people inside. They ordered each person out of the vehicle and arrested all 4 of them. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was shot. And other than the arrests that are going on right now, we don't know much about how this all started, how it all played out. But at this point, this parking lot here at the 7-Eleven, the last 2 days, a lot of police activity right here in this area. Guys, back to you.
Wow, Chris. That's Chris Jones reporting live in South Salt Lake. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. Where are all the civil rights activists out there? Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, where are you clowns? Is it too inconvenient for you Uncle Toms to take the initiative of going out there? Sorry, there's no foul spots or red carpet treatment for you guys. That's one thing I don't like. Because, don't get me wrong, you're always going to have corruption in these particular entities, whereas police, politicians, and so forth. But, I just got to say one thing for sure. Hopefully, justice will prevail. Because too many innocent people are getting killed unnecessarily, and we all know for a fact that the police are being trained more aggressively than ever before. Just do your homework on this, my friends. You know what I might just do too? On what's going on with the whole over-militarization and all that? I'm gonna add the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Probably been a bottom of the page. So hopefully I'll get that and share that with you folks. But I'm like lost for words. There's a lot of double standards out there when it comes to the mainstream media. And alright, well, on a final note here, this is an auction archive. I just got it from a tweet, unreported news. And it actually came out July 19th to be exact. And it's very interesting. It's from Aubrey Averill from the Arizona Central. It's entitled "The Real ID Act to Begin affect Arizonians." And it says here, lawmakers told the federal government in 2008 that the state would not cooperate in the Real ID Act, a post 9/11 law meant to make it harder for terrorists to obtain fake IDs. What a wet dream. The first fallout from the decision could begin to be felt in Arizona on Monday. Residents of the states that have not complied with the Real ID Act, Arizona is one of the 11 such states, will not be able to use their driver's licenses to get into restricted areas or other federal facilities and nuclear power plants. Can we say anti-10th Amendment? In January, the list of areas requiring a second form of identification, like a passport, will expand to include all federal facilities that require identification. Ultimately, the restrictions could apply to people trying to board a plane, although that will not come until at least 2016, and only after the Department of Homeland Security evaluation. It might be time for the state to revisit the Real ID issue, said Representative Debbie McCune Davis from Glendale. It becomes a real problem when we start talking about travel and air travel because you're not going to need to have a valid ID, she said. That's going to put a burden on the average citizen to have a passport in addition to the state issue in order to meet these requirements. None of that was on minds of lawmakers in 2008 when they approved House Bill 2677, which then Governor Janet Napolitano signed, and which prohibits the states from becoming a real ID compliant. That's how she got the job, to be Homeland Security Secretary. Alright, U.S. Representative Kristen Sinema, Democrat Phoenix, was a member of the Arizona House of Representatives, which she sponsored the bill along with former Russell Pierce, Republican from Mesa, and others on both sides of the aisle. The Arizona Republic Court of Sema, at the same time, saying she had privacy concerns about the Real ID Act and its supporting databases. When you give government too much access to a person's private information, you open up the potential for abuse. And we have seen that abuse in the past. Sinema said that the Real ID takes away a person's inherited right to privacy. Thank you. Thank you. That's very good. Excellent. Requests for comments from Governor Jambrew's office were not immediately returned. When state bureaucrats were asked whether they were rethinking compliance with Real ID, they pointed to the state law that flatly they cannot. This state shall not participate in the implementation of the Real ID Act of 2005, says the law, which was forwarded by Arizona Department of Transportation spokesman Harold Sanders. The department shall not implement the Real ID Act of 2005 and shall report to the governor and the legislature in any attempt by agencies or the agents of the Department of Homeland Security to secure the implementation of the Real ID Act of 2005. The Act established standards for producing and issuing state driver's licenses and identification cards. According to the Department of Homeland Security website, standards included elements already on licenses: full name, gender, date of birth, and photo, as well as security features being deterred tampering, a check against Social Security records, and a database of all license information that could be accessed by any state, among other requirements. It also authorized grants to help states implement the standard and prohibited federal agencies from accepting identification from states unless they met the standards. Up yours. Late last year, the Department of Homeland Security announced the phase enforcement program for Real ID. The first phase started April 21st and affected anyone trying to set access to restricted areas of the Department of Homeland Security's headquarters in Washington. The second phase starts Monday, and the third starts January 19th. Homeland Security said 39 states and 4 territories are either in compliance with the law or have asked for an extension. Even some states that have laws against compliance, as Arizona does, that will let residents use their use their driver's license alone for access. Residents of 11 states and American Samoa have not complied will have to provide some additional ID, such as a passport or enhanced driver's license, and those that allow residents to apply for them. Oh, goody. McCune Davis, who voted against HB 2677, said there were concerns about the cost of the program, but that it didn't make sense to put a strict prohibition in place. My hope was there would see some negotiation between the state and federal government about offsetting costs so that the state could comply, she said. Putting the Real ID. The Department of Homeland Security schedule for phasing and enforcement of the Real ID law when driver's licenses from Real ID compliant states, Arizona does not comply, will be needed to access these areas. Restricted areas of the Department of Homeland Security headquarters, effective April 21st, 2014, which has already been done. Restricted areas at any federal facilities and nuclear power plants, January 21st, 2014. Areas in federal facilities available to the public with identification, which is January 19, 2015. Access to commercial flights no sooner than 2016, and only after review and evaluation on program. Oh, I could tell you this, my friends. Mao would be proud. That's right. Mao would be proud. And so it was very disturbing, because the truth of the matter is, in the U.S. Constitution, there's the 9th and 10th this Real ID Act violates. They're trying to tell the states what to do. Like I said before, people start reading Federalist Papers 46, which is in my past archives, which the link is in there as well. And James Madison hit right on the head about states' rights. And as far as I'm concerned, Homeland Security is nothing more than a tyrannical entity that needs to be abolished immediately. I was one of the suckers that got all my paperwork to get my license, and that was my damn fault. The question I had for them, because when I had my birth certificate, it said it wasn't a certified version, and I was on the Florida Department of Motor Vehicles database since January of 1984. So I asked them this: you're telling me that I'm considered an illegal a 42-year-old illegal alien from Brooklyn, New York? They didn't like that answer, my question, because they knew I was right, as far as I'm concerned. And I know too that they say the whole thing's a total farce. It's not fighting terrorism; it's controlling the citizens. The war on terror is a conflict with ourselves. And I'm going to add a little footnote here from the realnightmare.org. Talks about the anti-real ID legislation of the states. Has some little links on there, which, the ACLU is totally against the Real ID Act, which I commend them for that. Even though I may have disagreements, but this one here, I give them the thumbs up. And I know too that in the governor's race, Libertarian Adrian Wiley believes in not having the Real ID Act be complied in the great state of Florida, and he was a man that had the courage to send in his driver's license and go, based on the Real ID Act, I'm giving you my license because it's unconstitutional, and had the courage to call up the Hillsborough Sheriff's Department and say he's going to drive his vehicle without a driver's license. Right now he may be a little bind, but he is making some impact, and the whole goal is getting people to think. So I do commend him for that. So yeah, that's really it. I'm just a little bit tired, my friends. So I'm just mellowing out here. And I know it took a little over an hour, but I had to give you my intake as usual. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. You can hit your comments, criticisms, rants on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I got YouTube. I got like so many others sources, but I got to reactivate them. But those are the areas, including iHeartRadio too. Alright, my friends, and always remember this, that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate societies. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.